Just 15 minutes from downtown Chicago is a neighborhood called Humboldt Park. In years past, the children of Polish and Scandinavian immigrants played freely along the tree-lined streets of Humboldt Park. They dutifully attended church with their parents and solemnly recited the catechism before equally solemn pastors. Humboldt Park was once the kind of neighborhood you would like your children to grow up in. It was here that L. Frank Baum once lived, and it was here in 1899 that he began writing down images of Dorothy and her little dog Toto, the Tin Man, Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion, in that most popular of all children's tales, The Wizard of Oz. Children still play along the streets of Humboldt Park, but for them, the neighborhood is far from the marvelous land of Oz. Today, Humboldt Park has the highest number of juvenile homicides per capita in the nation. 97 young people between the ages of 11 and 20 were gunned down, beaten, or stabbed to death in this neighborhood last year. 55 street gangs comprised of children as young as 6 and adults as old as 50 walk its streets. Fewer than half of the adults who live here have a job, and 3/4 of the residents of Humboldt Park are on welfare. There's widespread alcoholism and drug traffic, and, like festering sores, burned out and abandoned buildings appear everywhere. It was here, in what is considered by many authorities to be one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the nation, a neighborhood in which nearly 90% of the residents are unchurched, that Pastor Gary Mills came in an attempt to establish a congregation of the American Lutheran Church.
There is a light in Humboldt Park. There is a light burning within the darkness there in the night. There is a light keeping the candle burning, watching the world a-turning. There is a light in Humboldt Park.
The grim statistics for Humboldt Park give the impression that the people here are little more than animals, surviving in an urban jungle. Nothing could be further from the truth. In spite of unemployment, which is nearly 8 times higher than the national average, many of the neighborhood's inhabitants do have jobs, and they work hard at them. Like us, they enjoy their times of recreation. And like us, they have some of the most delightful and beautiful children in the world. But the people of Humboldt Park also experience life far differently than most of us do. 70% of the families here are single-parent families, and most often, that single parent is the mother. That can result in great poverty, and it frequently results in great anguish.
We had one woman, 27 years old, white, who walked 40 blocks, 42 blocks to be exact, because she heard that she could get shoes here. Why does somebody want shoes? It's evident in the middle of a snowstorm on February 13th when she walks into my office with no shoes and no stockings, why she's asking for shoes. And then she opens her coat, and there's her little baby son, 7 months old, with no clothes on. Through the conversation we have with her, we find out that she has been living in a garbage bin and a cardboard box attached to it, a refrigerator cardboard box attached to it for a little more space, all winter.
To experience life in Humboldt Park also means to experience the threat of gang violence which hangs in the air here. Officer Nellie Figueroa of the Chicago Police Department's Youth Crime Division grew up in Humboldt Park and is well acquainted with its gangs.
To the majority of youth gang members, the gang functions as an extension of the family and provides companionship lacking in that gang member's home environment. They look up to it as a family structure, and actually that's how they feel. It's a home away from home. It's their family. They're the kids that won't think twice about going down the dark alley and shooting someone in the back of the head.
Since arriving in Humboldt Park, Pastor Mills has been in buildings where shots have been fired past him. He and his wife Diane have had to lie on the floor as they listen to stray bullets from gang wars break windows and become embedded in the siding of their house. Nearly a dozen young people have been killed on the street outside their home, and in just 10 months, Gary Mills conducted funeral services for 11 young people, all victims of gang violence. The oldest was 14. The youngest was a 6-year-old boy who was beaten to death and left on his family's doorstep.
I remember one funeral in particular where the family not only had gone through the brutality of their son being slain, a son who hadn't even reached puberty yet, but then they have to come into the funeral home. There are guards, if you will, gang members of the same gang standing on top of the funeral home with guns, very present. You're frisked to go through the door, and you get inside, and as we're conducting the funeral, people are pushed aside, an opposing gang comes running in. They pushed the family aside, pushed me to the floor, and they took the body from the casket, drug it out the street, and threw it on top of a car. You can imagine, I've talked with pastors and priests who have had similar things happen, even one priest who had the body taken out, all the clothing removed, and the body was hung from a pole, a light pole, outside of the funeral home.
You cannot walk the streets and alleys of Humboldt Park without being constantly reminded of the presence of the gangs. They mark their territory not with graffiti that contains profanity, but with coded symbols that are deadly in meaning and intent. A pitchfork means death. Initials are often those of rival gangs or individuals who will be killed at some time in the future. But most of all, one senses the presence of the gangs in the faces of the young people of Humboldt Park. Kike is 17 years old. He is the leader of one of the neighborhood's most violent gangs, the Disciples. He has been the object of assassination attempts and has been wounded once. So far, he has survived.
I'll fight because I like to fight. That's one thing. I'll fight no matter what. I won't back down. If they beat me up, they beat me up. Or if I beat him up, it don't matter. It's killing. As far as killing, it's like I wouldn't want to get killed. And I know nobody else want to get killed. But it's just the chance we take. Everybody takes that chance. You're in the game, you take the chance of getting killed.
It's a scary way of feeling for yourself. You have to watch your back every time you go somewhere and everything, because different gang members will recognize your face. So you have trouble.
It's just, when they get to fighting, sometimes it really gets terrible, because when I used to fight, we used to fight with guns.
Gilbert and Luis learned to handle and shoot a gun at another human being by the time they were 14. Both have now left the gangs, but they will always carry with them the nightmares of gang warfare.
I felt scary, and you have people on your back, such as your foster parents, telling you to leave it or something will happen, and you always think about that. You wake up in the morning and you say, hey, I might die today. I never know that.
Half the dudes what I know that were in at the time when I was in, they usually got shot and they died of bullet wounds and everything. Some of them were all right, but when they got into a little bit too much trouble, what they gonna handle and stuff, and they got blown away.
For Kike, too, the nightmare goes on. Is there a better life somewhere, perhaps away from Humboldt Park?
I say the only place like that is when you're dead, where you won't have to suffer, because there's everywhere you go in the world, they got fighting no matter what. It's like you can go anywhere and it's like almost the same, you know. Maybe there, you know, they won't have gangs, but there's still people getting killed, you know. It's just like the United States and Russia. Who's going to destroy who?
I really get sick and tired of people doing stupid things, like gangs and stuff. That's so stupid, because all they do is hide behind their friends or guns and stuff. And then there's drugs and stuff like that. And all
Kelly is also one of the young people of Humboldt Park. Her sisters ran away from home to escape an abusive father, and she doesn't know where her mother is. Kelly now lives with a cousin who genuinely cares for her and who has become one of two important influences in her young life. The other major influence in Kelly's life has been St. Mary's Lutheran Church, the newly emerging congregation which was gathered together for worship by Pastor Mills just 3 months after he arrived in Humboldt Park.
Kelly is kind and compassionate, quiet. She's had a lot of pain in her life. She's so excited about her church. She was so frightened that after confirmation we wouldn't have classes that she could come to anymore.
It's among young people like Kelly that some of St. Mary's most creative outreach takes place. Outreach as simple and as complex as the baking of bread.
Okay, Louis, yours is doing really well.
The loaves prepared by young people in Diane Mills' kitchen are distributed to needy families in the neighborhood. One loaf is saved for Holy Communion on Sunday. Mondays at St. Mary's, a group of unmarried mothers-to-be, some as young as 13, gather to share concerns and receive much-needed support.
Okay, I talked to Louis too, so he's coming along. Okay. Good, see you later.
On Fridays, young people from ages 8 to 16 gather for counseling and companionship. All of them are alcoholics. Break dancing, sponsored in cooperation with nearby Bethel Lutheran Church, is another way of reaching the youth of Humboldt Park. And in the dramatic cleanup of the neighborhood, TAG, Teens Against Gangs and Graffiti, was organized to cart away over 250 bags of trash and several truckloads of abandoned sofas and mattresses that blighted the community. To be in ministry with the young people of Humboldt Park and their families also means to reach out to them in their most basic times of need. Here in this city of 6 million people are families who cannot afford electricity. Because of the concern of a Mission Partners congregation in Liberal, Kansas, St. Mary's has been able to provide candles so that young people in these households can study at night.
There is a light in Humboldt Park. There is a light burning within the darkness there in the night. There is a light keeping the candle burning, watching the world a-turning. There is a light in Humboldt Park.
I have been trying to deal with one of our parishioners here, Jenny Cruz, concerning the letter on the top. It's a notice of change. It's a DPA 157, and it says discontinued medical assistance. And what we wanted to explain was on the bottom it says reason. The reason for this action has an active grant case. That's correct.
If you're not involved currently in a church, do you attend any churches in the neighborhood?
Over 100 other neighborhood families come to St. Mary's Food Pantry each week, and nearly 200 families make weekly use of the emerging congregation's clothes closet.
Power and riches and wisdom and
Above all, St. Mary's reaches out to the people of Humboldt Park with the message that here are God's people, seeking to share not only food and clothing, but the certainty of His loving presence in their lives.
Que el reino de Dios está presente entre nosotros en Cristo Jesús. Jesus is saying that the
Our worship is bilingual. We do everything in English and in Spanish.
We're all a family, whether we're Spanish or English or German or black or white or what, it doesn't matter. We don't see those things. And I think that makes us all one, and it makes us have hope, and we help each other. We're here for each other.
Well, I haven't gone to church for quite a while till I came over here, because I needed some help at one time. And I decided to stay here because this church is for people that are poor and in need.
Him and Diane are fantastic people. They're not, they're people. They're real people. And that's what we needed, somebody to talk to us, somebody that has patience with us, somebody that cares. And they both care, and we feel it. And we can't help but give it to each other because they give it to us.
I'm glad that I came over here because my kids, they have a lot of things for my kids that are involved in craft and all this, And I like, Pastor has done a lot of things for our kids.
I don't think I would have known any of these people as intimately as I know them now had there not been a church here.
When I came to this church, it was almost 2 months ago. Diane was giving out fruit outside and vegetables, and my husband was working on a building across the street, and he happened to glance that way, and he thought she was selling this stuff, and they met, and he was all excited about it. He ran to the house.
Here was this woman actually out there, involved in the community, giving away bags of food to, people who really needed it. And this sort of struck me as being kind of what a church should be about, involved. I'm a reformed drug abuser. I'm getting a lot of therapy. Gary helps tremendously. Well, when Gary first asked me about being an assistant in the Mass, it scared me to death. And not only that, but I didn't feel I was worthy. After I got through dealing with some of those emotions, I was flattered.
Mark's getting involved with something that he has never gotten involved with before, and it is so exciting for me and for him. Our life is changing so much, and I feel that God has answered our prayer. He has sent us Gary.
Keeping the candle burning. She is a light in a Humboldt Park. He is a light in a Humboldt Park. Watching the world turning, there is a light in a Humboldt Park.
Ministry happens in places like Humboldt Park because we are called to address the brokenness of humanity in our own nation. It happens because of the courage and commitment of pastors like Gary Mills, his wife Diane, and the people of St. Mary's. But just as important, ministry in the Humboldt Parks of America will continue to happen because of you and congregations such as the one to which you belong. 19 congregations like yours have chosen to establish a very special and direct relationship with the people of Humboldt Park by becoming mission partners with St. Mary's. For St. Mary's and other developing congregations like it, the support of mission partners congregations has not been just a nice gesture of Christian charity. It has been crucial to its very survival.
We have mission congregations in Iowa and Minnesota, in Kansas and in Wisconsin, who send food, who send candles.
I don't think St. Mary's would be here because we've had to struggle with everything, with the space, with the building, with worship materials, education materials. And our mission partners have come
mission congregations right here in Chicago who every month give us food and clothing for the ministries of the church, the pantries.
I've just seen so many neat things happen to congregations and to individuals within congregations because they've been related to St. Mary's. I think people get a good feeling that
time and perhaps some physical things, food or clothing, to St. Mary's. We got a great deal more back from St. Mary's, the sharing of the, with the young people particularly.
Now, when the word comes that the ALC has not quite collected what they need in order to carry out their obligations, the people here are saying, what's that doing to St. Mary's? And they realize that one thing that happens when the money isn't there is that places like St. Mary's are cut back and don't have the kind of support that they need to have.
Our congregation had been very active in the inner city several years ago when the congregation was first organized. But gradually we became more and more interested in ourselves and making sure that
our hunger offerings are up from what they were before we were involved in St. Mary's. Our benevolence has gone up, and I look for that to continue as time goes on. And I think that, too, we have come to an awareness of the fact that we're not here for ourselves alone.
When Pastor Mills came to us, he really opened up the eyes of all of us so that we realized how fortunate we were in having God's blessings and how much we needed to share these blessings with other people.
We spend less of our time talking about, the light bill and so forth, and more time talking about, why we're here and what's important for us to be doing.
In 10 months, we have built relationships that will go on forever, I hope. They're so important. They're personally important to me and to my wife. They're important to the mission of this place. They're important to the mission of the church in the world. As we together work and not as individual congregations. Together, spread the good news as partners in the gospel.
We share a dream in Humboldt Park. We share a dream burning within my spirit. What does it mean? We share a dream, keeping the candle burning, watching the world a-turning. We share a dream in Humboldt Park.